as you love, you will see me in the stars. As you look up at the stars, I will be there.
I'm Monica Charette, and this is Holding the Light.
As long as you love, I will whisper in your ear. Little whispers you will hear. As long as you love.
We're here today to talk about how a young man's spirit continues to impact the world long after his life was tragically cut short by an accidental drug overdose. It's a story of a mother's plea to have others remember her son Austin for how he lived, not how he died. He deserves that, and so does she. We uncover the legacy Austin left behind in conversations and the quiet strength of a mother's love. Colby and I are proudly holding the light with Janice Deans. Between the pre-interview process with our guests and the actual recording date, I often have many exchanges with fellow lost moms, and we begin this natural conversation of support and caring. And such was the case with you, Janice. So I am so glad to finally see you and share how grateful I am to know you.
Me as well. It was wonderful speaking with you.
So you're approaching the day 9 years ago that you lost your 18-year-old son, Austin, to an accidental drug overdose. How are you feeling as you near this milestone?
It's always difficult this time of year. The closer the date comes, the more anxiety builds, the feeling of dread. And so that's always a struggle for me. But it kind of dawned on me this year as well that he had been gone, half as long as he had been here. And it's amazing like how those kinds of realizations will really affect you when they hit, and they kind of sneak up on you so you don't see them coming. It's similar as it is every time, this time of year.
I'm already anticipating the 17th year marking Cassidy's death being longer than the years she lived. So why do you think we continuously do this mental milestone calculation when it's so painful? Like, why do we keep doing that to ourselves?
I don't know. Sometimes I think it's our mind's way of trying to make sense of something that's so, unsensible to us that it would happen. Something that we never expected would happen to us. There's always that, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you, but you never consider the fact that it might happen, to yourself. And so I feel like it's this way of your mind just actively trying to seek an answer as to why it happened in the first place.
I would agree with that. We also don't have any other milestones going forward.
No, that's the end of the milestones, unfortunately.
Right. So part of sharing our stories is the benefit of educating people about child loss, and Austin's death from a drug overdose gives you that very unique opportunity to share his story and possibly help another family avoid this tragedy. So if you can, I know it's difficult, tell us what happened to Austin and maybe start with the time leading up to his passing.
It was actually a Monday morning. I'd taken one of my other sons in to have some x-rays. He had injured himself over the weekend, and we were just kind of checking in to make sure he was okay. And while I was in there, Austin's dad had called my phone several times. And it was kind of unlike him to do that. Typically, he might call one time and leave a message and just kind of wait for me to return the message. And so when I came out of the x-ray with my son, my husband had said, Josh tried to call you several times. It's, you should probably call him back. So I waited till we got out into the yard, and I gave him a call to see what was up. And I just remember him saying, he's gone. And I think there's this like mental block where you can't accept what is actually being said to you. So you're searching for other explanations. So I kept saying, where, where, what do you mean he's gone? Like where? And he just kept saying it because of course he's in absolute, shock and pain himself, so like, I don't think he really had the ability to say a whole lot more. And I was I got mad at him. I was yelling at him. I couldn't understand, like, why are you not elaborating on where he went? Like, where is he? You know? And it didn't really hit me what he was saying until I heard my husband, and my husband just said, "Oh my God." And that's when it hit me what he was telling me. I really wish my son had not been with us when that happened. That's something that haunts me to this day, is that my son had to experience that with me. But of course, when it hits like a freight train. It's just so unbelievable and so much emotion all at once. You just don't know what to do with it. I just have snapshots of the days that followed. I don't have like solid memories. I don't know if that's your mind's way of trying to protect you from what you just can't deal with. But I just had like snapshots of what came the following days.
So what happened to him? What happened to Austin?
Austin had mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
He was just the most wonderful, caring, amazing, just can't say enough good about him. Such a good boy. But he also was a tortured soul. He had depression issues. He had some behavioral stuff as a child that was, really hard. We later learned that Austin had been sexually abused by a relative. And that was just crushing to hear and to try to help him deal with. We had gone through so many counseling sessions and doctors and any source of help we could find for him, essentially. He really struggled with taking the medicine that he was supposed to take. Some people had made him feel kind of silly for taking it. So he had some emotions around it, like he was not a strong person because he required these things. And, along with that is, an adolescent taking medications to help with things like that. Puberty really does a number on those. And it's really hard to get them right. And you just get them kind of in a good place, and then it needs to be changed again. And so it was very difficult to get him in a place where he felt good for any significant amount of time. And so he had started to self-medicate. It had originally started with alcohol, and he had talked to me about it. He had told me, we were talking by text one day, and he said that he was afraid that he might be an alcoholic, which just scared me tremendously. But I had so much fear surrounding making the wrong decisions, not having the experience to say the right things, not having the confidence as a young mom that I would know how to handle this. So I was always trying to refer him to other sources. Oh, let's go talk to your doctor. Let's go talk to a therapist, which is a large source of guilt for me. Probably should have just said, what can I do? But I just didn't feel like I had the resources and the education to do that. And I was so afraid to do the wrong thing.
And you had other children too, right?
I did, yeah. I have 5 children, and I have a stepdaughter as well. So trying to manage, all of that and not, be able to accurately, help him or give him the right advice or, it was so much going on in my life at the time. And I was just trying to do whatever I thought was best in the moment, which, how hindsight is. It's, later on, when you sit back and think of it, you think of a million things you wish you had done instead. And I think every parent that's lost a child feels that way. No matter how they pass, they all have these feelings, why did I do this? Why did I not do that? But I definitely feel that way. In him not getting the help he needed with that, it just progressed. I was actually unaware it had progressed beyond alcohol. I knew he had, smoked a little pot, but a lot of kids do. So I wasn't very scared about that, and then the day that I got the call, I just had no idea what happened to him. I couldn't imagine what it was that happened. We were just stunned. He was gone. Like, what could this have been? And it wasn't until we actually got the report from the coroner that he had died of a drug overdose. And then it was just like a slam again, because how could I not know this was happening? How could I not know he was doing this thing? How could I have missed this? And so it was just that shock, all over again that, he had passed in this way and that I wasn't even aware it was a problem in his life. It felt just very inadequate as a parent at that time.
Do you feel like then he died from a drug overdose, or do you feel like he died because of his mental illness?
I think they're the same. I think they're one and the same. I find that most of the people that have a drug problem are medicating for some reason. And I feel like it all stems from mental illness in one way or the other. Unless you're someone that has come from this, had this horrible accident and, gained this dependency from the need of the drugs for such a long period of time. I don't think anybody that is 100% well just up and chooses one day to become a drug addict. So I feel like they're really the same thing, that this comes from a place of, mental hardship in some way.
I think that's a really good point to make. There's also so much stigma surrounding death from drug overdose, and people in many ways are becoming so desensitized. You and I have talked about that, and they often just pass negative judgment instead of providing empathy. What was your experience with that, and how did people respond when they learned how he died?
It was actually the lack of response. It was the most alarming to me. I live in a community where there's actually been a lot of kids that have passed from tragedies, just horrible things, car accidents and suicide. And, and specifically, I recall a family that, tragically lost their child in a car accident. And there was calls to action, and there were dinners to help support the family and their expenses that they weren't prepared for, and just immense community support around this family, which is wonderful. That's what every parent should have, experiencing such a loss. And I found that was not the experience that I had or other parents that have lost their children to a quote unquote sort of fault way of passing. And, it was kind of brushed under the blanket. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody really wanted to, call any attention to it. It was this taboo way of passing. And I don't think anybody intentionally chooses to do that, but it's definitely noticed when you're going through something that traumatic, that you don't have the same support that other families received because your child passed in a way that people don't feel, weighs as awful as the way their child passed. I did it myself. I can honestly say, without realizing it, I did it myself as well before I lost my child. Oh, that's terrible. I can't believe that their son did that, or, that they left their family in that way. They're not here to hear the judgment. They're not here to hear you say, those things. It's their family they left behind that are here to hear that. And they lost their loved one. It doesn't matter how it happened. It doesn't matter what took them from this earth. Their family they left behind love them just as much as, the child that got in the car accident. It's no different to them. And, by weighing that as a lesser loss because of how it happened is just very sad, that it would happen to anybody. And I felt like my child didn't get that recognition, like he was now being seen only in the way he died. Nothing about his life, not what kind of person he was, not how tragic he was that he wasn't here anymore, but that he was that druggy kid that passed in the neighborhood. And that was really difficult for me to accept.
Yeah, I think like Americans especially have done such a, I shouldn't say it, I mean, I guess objectively an amazing job at kind of brainwashing society into reducing our compassion and empathy for those who have passed away from drugs. I think a lot of times we put so much blame on the individual and we see it as this bad thing. But that's without understanding like the actual statistics behind it. I mean, you're more likely to actually be a drug addict if you're wealthy and live in nicer neighborhoods. The reality is just that that money covers up the harshest effects of it, and they're able to kind of shield society from seeing it. And we just don't really have a built-in system, even like in terms of social safety nets for drug addicts. A lot of people think of like, well, they got themselves in this position. Why should my tax dollars go to their recovery instead of somebody who has diabetes or somebody who can't control that? But like anything else, I think, like you said it beautifully, mental health concerns with regards to addiction is usually the number one cause of how people get into drugs in the first place. And I don't know, myself personally, this is such a really important topic. I feel so horribly for so many people out there who are struggling with a child who's addicted or has passed away from an overdose, because there's also a lack of support systems for them as well. So I'm just curious, have you been able to access any of those support systems for mothers or for grieving parents who have lost a child from overdose? Have you been able to find any support systems like that?
I haven't found anything in my area. When Austin passed, when I got to a place where I was ready and I needed, people to talk to, there really wasn't anything available. I did talk, I had my counselor I'd had for years, and she was invaluable to me. And I had a friend that I worked with years before. Her name was Kathy, and she had lost her daughter, Chantel, to a drug overdose as well. And she became my absolute lifeline. I don't know how far I would have made it without her. She was wonderful. I could say the things to her that other people wouldn't understand. I could be angry at him, and she got that. She didn't think it diminished my love for my son because I was angry with him, and that's when I realized like how invaluable people are that have been in this situation to others that are either entering it or at any stage in it, really. How much support you can offer someone when they know where you've been. We've lost a lot of people in our family. We've lost them in various different ways. Our kids have been through a tremendous amount of loss at a very young age, but nothing compared to this. This was an entirely different, uncharted territory. And for her to be there was an absolute lifeline for me. And it made me want to do the same. So when another child in our community was lost, I felt drawn to start something. If it's not here, then somebody needs to start one. Let's, throw it out on Facebook and see what, if there's any interest, and we'll figure it out as we go along. And that's how Austin's Legacy was born, which is the support group that I started for parents in my area that have lost children.
Now let's talk about that. How you channeled your grief to help others, and a lot of grieving families do that. I've heard it called its reinvestment, which is new to me. That's a word I'd never really heard of. But so you founded a child loss support group for your local grief community. Tell us about that.
So, it was, like I said, it was born from the need I felt that we had in our community to give people a place to go. There were general grief groups, and those are better than nothing, but it's really hard to sit in a grief group after having such an untimely loss in your life. You're programmed right from the get-go as a kid. You're going to lose your grandparents someday. You're going to lose your parents someday. There's an order to things that you have all these, preconceived, ideas about. This is how it's supposed to go. And then when something so untimely happens, it just rocks you to your core, and you realize that there's really nothing out there that supports that particular kind of loss. And so my drive to change the way people looked at my son and my son's loss which is why I called it Austin's Legacy. I wanted to change that legacy that people had of him, that he was just this druggy kid, this troubled kid that passed, and try to create this group of support and love for people like he had. He was just such a caring individual, and he would do anything for anyone, to make that his legacy instead, and do that by creating this group and this safe place for people to go that are struggling like I am. My son and I, my son Aiden, he is also just an unbelievably caring, empathetic soul. Went to speak with schools with me. That's how we originally started it. We went to talk to schools about changing the perception on how you view people that have drug problems. I think social media has made it so easy for people to say the most awful things to each other and about other people. without that face-to-face interaction where they'd have to actually stand there and look you in the eye and say these things. It's made it so easy that they have completely desensitized to the pain they're causing the family, the ones that are still here listening to the comments that are made. And so we started by talking to schools to try to help them understand that these are people and that they have families that love them, to start at that level before they're adults, before they've become, so set in their ways that they're not willing to change. And then it evolved into a place for people to go. We have a kind of a core group, but we have some that come and go. But we've just become so invaluable to each other. And we're all at different places in our grief. Some are relatively new. Some have been dealing with this for a very long time by themselves. But the advice that we have to offer each other to navigate this has been invaluable, and it's just been this family that has really strengthened my life for sure. And I hope that they all feel the same about it. I feel like when you share in the group and you talk about your loss and how you deal with different things and holidays and anniversaries, not only do you give a new perspective to someone else in the group, but by saying it out loud and having to explain it to someone else, you get a deeper understanding of it yourself. Selfishly, it helps me a lot as well to talk to people and to try to help them with this. And I've just found it to be a beautiful group of people that, have this shared experience that really just want to be there for each other. And it's been wonderful.
It's very admirable that you started that. Who attends it? How many people? When do you meet? And how can people get involved if they're in the greater Bangor or Brewer community?
We meet on Thursday nights at 6:00 every Thursday. I do have a Facebook page. It's austonslegacy@gmail.com. People can reach out to me that way. I'm sorry, Austin's Legacy 2016@gmail.com. If they want to join or if they want to ask questions about it, we have our Facebook page, which is under Austin's Legacy as well. If people feel more comfortable joining there and talking to people at first until they get more comfortable. We've had some people reach out that have had some poor experiences with support groups that are a little concerned about trying a new one. And so they've had a lot of, talking with me personally just to kind of get a feel of what it's like and, what the expectations are. I think a lot of people feel like you're sitting around in a circle and you're expected to share and you have to, come in and tell your story, and people don't like to be vulnerable and emotional around other people if they don't know. And that's not at all how we run it. You can come and sit and be silent if you need. That's something that we've all learned in the course of this, is that you don't always have to say something to the person. There's not an expectation that you sit down and you have this magic word that you say that is going to make them feel better. Because in reality, there's nothing much you're going to say that is going to make them feel better. But you're there with them. That's the important thing, is that you're there and you're showing your support. There's no magic words and there's nothing, there's no requirement coming into our group that you have to share your story. If you decide 10 weeks in that you finally want to, that's amazing. And if you never want to, that's fine. So we try to make it as comfortable as possible. The regulars in our group that we have, there's about 6 of them. They're very, very loving and compassionate people, and they have a way of making newcomers feel so, warm and supported. And so if that's all they need from us, then we've done something great. If they never talk about their loss and they never ask for, any advice on different things that are happening, if they just come and sit there and feel supported, then wonderful.
We're pausing here to let you know we're trying something new this season. We want to hear from you. If there is something you've learned in your grief journey that might be helpful for others, we invite you to leave us a voicemail message. I promise to listen to everyone. Some might even be used in a future Holding the Light episode. You're also welcome to just let us know what you think of this podcast. You can suggest a topic or request to be a guest. The number to call and leave a voicemail is 617-302-7373. We can't wait to hear from you. That's 617-302-7373. The number is also in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Now let's get back to our conversation. I feel like just the short time that I've known you, that this support group has helped you heal and find your place in the world.
Yes, tremendously. A lot of them tell me, oh, we love you so much. Thank you so much for doing this. It's doing so much for me. It helps me so much. I don't feel like it's anything that any of us are doing for anyone else. It's this mutual support we're all offering each other. I provided a place for us to do it. But other than that, it's so cool sometimes to listen to them support another parent. And I hear things that I've said to them, and they're saying it to someone else. And that is tremendous. That makes me feel like, what we're doing as a group is really, truly supporting each other. And I have said things to people in support that I've heard other people in the group say that really resonated with me. And it just feels like the right thing to do. This was what Austin would do. If Austin was put in this situation, this is what he would do. He would be looking for ways to help people and to show people that they're loved and give them support. That's who he was as a person. Like, he was this amazingly creative, smart person, but at his core, he was just so loving, which I think is what made it so easy to be in pain for him. He felt everything around him. So,
well, Austin was many things, as you've shared. You told me he was an entrepreneur and that he was also an animal enthusiast. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's just no telling what kind of animal he was going to bring home. I remember him running around in our field, and he knew I was not a fan of snakes, and he would be like, "Look, Mom," and he would just hold his hands up with just fistfuls of snakes he'd found. He had thrown down boards out in the field so that they would hide underneath it, and he could go find him, and he'd just be so proud of himself. And he had dogs and cats and any animal he could love on and carry around. And one in particular was his duck, Charles. They had the funniest little relationship. I would have people message me on Facebook and be like, "Hey, I saw Austin walking on the waterfront this morning with Charles under his arm." He would make pants for him. He had birthday parties where he'd make little cakes out of like the seed mixture, and they would all have little signs around their necks running around the yard. It was just ridiculous, but
that's wonderful.
They were people, and and it was just one of those quirky, funny things about him that just was so, just Austin. It wasn't like any of his sisters and brothers. It was just him. And he did a lot of cool things. He raised money in his community at one point to make these little kits full of toys and treats and things that when people would adopt an animal, they'd get one of these little bags with all these toys and treats in it to kind of start them off with their new animal at the Humane Society. He would raise money to build these little kits and leave them. He actually was in the paper for that, which was really cool, him and his dog Baxter. And so, he gave me so many things to be proud of. He was just that kid that just you knew he could just do amazing things. Whatever he wanted to do, he was going to be able to do it.
And that's how you want to remember your child, not how they died, but how they lived.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you wish more people understood about mourning the loss of a child to drug overdose? Are there things people say that help, or can you educate our listeners about things that really didn't help?
A lot of the cliche things that people say, I know that I said them. I said them too. Oh,
Guilty.
He wouldn't want you to be sad. Yeah, I did. I just said them too. Oh, he wouldn't want you to be sad. Well, he would understand why I was sad. And it's okay that I'm sad. It's okay. It really is just about showing up and being there for the person. And I know in the beginning, people would want to support me. I'd make the plan, okay, Thursday we'll have breakfast. And then come Thursday morning, I was absolutely paralyzed and I couldn't leave my house. Understand that that's not about you as a person or your support that you're offering. It's about that person just not being able to socially interact that day. They just don't have the energy in them. They don't have the ability to leave their house for the day. and giving them that grace and understanding that that's how it's going to be sometimes, that they're going to be unreliable as a friend for quite a while. They're not going to be able to keep plans, and they're not going to be able to interact with you the same way they did before their loss. It changes you at the very core. You're no longer the person they knew before. There's a sense of loss of yourself that is so significant. People say, oh, you died with him. In a way I did, part of me did. And now I had to navigate and find this new person in this new life and figure out how she was going to move forward. And I'm an unrecognizable being from who I was before he passed. But it doesn't mean I'm a bad person or I'm not, as good a person as I used to be. But I'm definitely different. And I think people need to understand and expect that that's how this person's going to be from now on. You can't get that person back, and be okay with that. And it's just accept them at where they are now, I think that the person I am now is a lot more empathetic to people, that they are a lot more understanding of where people are in life. I don't have the same outlook on people that use drugs that I did before I lost my son this way. I'm ashamed to say I ever had a negative viewpoint on people that use drugs. They're still 100% someone's child, brother, sister, uncle, it's grandson, it's the same person, with a problem. No different than someone that has cancer or someone that has, any other illness. I've heard the story so many times, about the Narcan, Narcan shouldn't be free, insulin's not. Well, I have a son with type 1 diabetes, and I had a son that died of a drug overdose. And I can tell you they're both equally, entitled to life-saving things. They both mean the same thing to me. And I would want my son to have insulin, and I would, give anything in this world for someone that had Narcan in their pocket when my son died. Anything that would save somebody from this pain is 100% worth being at any cost, to the community. It shouldn't be so easy to dismiss certain classes of people as unsavable. Looking at your community differently is stage one for helping people be supported when they lose their loved one this way. I don't know if my small little group would ever make that much of an impact, but we're doing what we can to look at people that have passed, by overdose, or, people that have death by suicide, all these trivial deaths in the community that are just weighed so differently. It's got to change somewhere. So,
well, as we've said, if we can reach one person, then it's worth your effort. And I think what you're doing is so admirable.
I think what you're doing is admirable. I was listening to your podcast, before I decided to do this. I had gone on and listened, and, one of my group members had done one as well. And I've listened to her 1,000 times, and I still cried through her podcast, knowing, what she goes through every day. And I think it's amazing that you're able to reach out and provide. This is a support way too. There's people everywhere that don't have access to a group. This might be their lifeline. I think it's anything that we're doing to help each other through such a tremendous loss is just wonderful.
Agreed, 100%. And it also gives us opportunity to educate other people who really don't understand what it's like to live with grief that's this profound and forever.
Yeah. It's definitely something I didn't understand prior to.
Yeah.
And there's still days I feel like I don't understand it, and I feel like I'm starting from from stage one. Some new thing will hit you, some new realization, or a memory, and it just feels like you kind of start over. But
yeah, we're still learning from each other.
Yes, every day.
We've learned a lot about your son in this conversation, but as we always do, I wonder if you could tell us how you'd like our listeners to remember your son, Austin.
He was just incredibly loving. That's probably the biggest thing about him, was how much he cared for other people. And he was always looking for ways to show it or to help people in the area. I think he felt everything extremely strong. Like his empathy was so, strong in him that it kind of, maybe had an effect on his mental health because he did care so much for people and he felt he couldn't do enough for others. And that's an admirable quality to have in someone so young. He was extremely creative, used to grow his own tea and make his own tea blends and sell them at farmers markets. He was just like this entrepreneur type of mentality that he could literally do whatever he wanted to do at any time. Got into photography for a while, and he would hold, photography shows at the local library that he'd put together all by himself. So there's really wasn't anything that he couldn't tackle, which I think is, so ironic, that shows how powerful mental illness can be in someone that was so strong in every other way. Hilarious. He was hilarious. His siblings and I still laugh at some of the things he said. He loved that video that was circulating online where the woman was talking about the fire in her apartment building. Ain't nobody got time for that. The kid could literally recite it from start to finish exactly like she said it. And it was just, anytime we can bring that up in a conversation, ain't nobody got time for that. We do it. It's kind of in his honor because he just had the funniest, quirkiest little way about him. Just absolutely gone too soon and was such a loss to the world.
Well, we're really honored to remember him with you today. This is such a deeply sensitive space to step into, and we're so grateful you've allowed us to be in it with you. We've learned so much today, Janice, and I want to say, I hope what others think never deprives you of the joy of speaking about Austin, because there's so much love there. So thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
As long as you love.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found this podcast helpful, please share our link with others and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. I'm Monica Charette, reminding you that you are never alone in your grief. Until next time, we'll be right here with you, holding the light.
As long as you love. As long as you